Of interest other than the fact that I am a physical therapist and believe in physical therapy is something that can help you when you have Parkinson's. This is my own movement inspiration, gets me going every day, my little dog, Happy. So we've already heard today about the cardinal movement signs or motor symptoms that help your neurologist diagnose Parkinson's disease: the slow movement of bradykinesia, the stiffness or rigidity, tremor, shaking at rest, and postural instability or poor balance in falls. But today I'm going to talk specifically about freezing, which is different. So I'm going to try to help you define freezing. We're going to talk about why freezing is a problem, who gets it, who's more likely, who with Parkinson's is more likely to have problems with freezing, where does it happen, and what can you do about it. So one of the official definitions of freezing of gait is a brief episodic absence or marked reduction of the forward progression of the feet despite the intention to walk. So what does that mean? Well, it's just that you want to walk, but your legs aren't going to cooperate. So as I said, freezing is more than just the motor signs of stiffness and slow movement. With freezing, movement is actually stopped. So the movement, it might not stop for long, it might just be for a fraction of a second or a few seconds or a minute, but what it does is when that movement stops briefly, that's what makes the movement appear less smooth, coordinated, and not as effective. So it's also episodic, means that freezing can come and it will go. It can change throughout the day. Freezing affects not just walking, but affects other types of movement as well, such as speech, fine motor activities, whether it's buttoning a shirt or brushing your teeth. Those kind of things can be affected by freezing as well. So I'm going to talk about freezing as it affects walking, which we call freezing of gait. So people describe it as feels like the feet are glued to the floor. Some people say it feels like they have magnets in their feet. Or you could call it the mafia disease. You've got your feet encased in concrete and you just can't pick them up to move. So the problem is that freezing, it can be unpredictable and it can come on suddenly. So about a third of people with Parkinson's fall every year, and the percentage is higher among those who have freezing of gait. And freezing of gait is one of the most common causes of falls. So with it being unpredictable and people falling anyway with Parkinson's, it can result in a lot of serious problems. So what are the risk factors for freezing? That means what are the chances that one of you might develop freezing? So I'm not going to give you a number, but what are some of the things that tie into that? And then what can you change? What differences can you make? So certainly if you have Parkinson's disease and it's not being treated with medication or physical therapy, that's definitely something to take a look at. If you haven't actually started any kind of medication therapy, you might want to be talking to your neurologist. Parkinson's medications, carbidopa, levodopa, as well as deep brain stimulation can all help with freezing. Seeing a physical therapist can help you one-on-one with strategies to combat freezing. I'm hoping today that you'll learn some ideas about how to work with your freezing, but you're not going to have the answer to everything. And you know what you hear today might just be something that you're hearing about now, and it may be later on in life when it starts to affect you, and you're like, oh, what did Kaaren say? I don't remember, that was 5 years ago. So with Parkinson's disease, there's fluctuating symptoms. You take your medication, and the brain is functioning in its usual kind of more normal automatic way. That's your on time. And then as the medications wear off, movement becomes more difficult, and you're having more of that off time. And over a period of being on carbidopa, levodopa, those off periods can become more frequent. So about half of people on carbidopa, levodopa tend to have off periods, and freezing is more likely to happen during those on periods. So make sure you're taking your medications on time, use your calendar, use your timer, talk to your neurologist about changes in your symptoms. So these are the first things you've got to do. You've got to take a look at, how am I managing my Parkinson's in general? You want to make sure to keep that managed to help reduce your risk for developing as many issues with freezing of gait. So also, freezing tends to appear in the mid to later stages of Parkinson's. So 1/3 to 2/3 of people with Parkinson's will eventually develop signs of freezing. So the longer you have Parkinson's, the more likely you are to develop freezing. So what can you do? You can't stop the passage of time, and you can't expect your medications to actually slow the disease process, right? They just help with your symptoms. But you can exercise, which can either be considered neuroprotective, or as they say now, it can better help the brain adapt to the changes that are occurring in your brain with Parkinson's disease. And I'm hoping that you can leave here today with some ideas, some tips on how to manage your freezing episodes when you go home today. So I'm hoping that you'll leave here with lots of ideas of things that you can try to see if they help you. Freezing is more common among people whose early symptoms involve problems with balance and walking problems. People that start off their Parkinson's presentation with tremors are less likely to have freezing of gait. So freezing is less prevalent among those who start off their disease with tremor. So studies also show that some amount of cognitive impairment is going to affect up to about 30% of people with Parkinson's early in the disease. So that's going to be problems with thinking and learning, understanding, visual, spatial relations, all these kind of things. And while walking is often seen as a pretty automatic activity that is handled deep inside the brain, actually the outer portion of our brain does play an important role in walking, especially in more complex situations. So, for example, let's say you're trying to cross a busy street. And there you've got cars, you've got lights, you've got street signs, you've got maybe pedestrians, and you have to look at all these different things that are going on. You've got to split your attention between those different things. You have to prioritize what's coming at me faster, that the pedestrian or the car, who's coming from what direction. You have to decide what to focus on and what to ignore. You've got to look back and forth quickly. You've got to think quickly, switching your attention back and forth between different things. And you may see a green light that says, okay, walk, but you may see a car coming faster than you think they ought to be coming, and you've got to decide which of those things to pay attention to. And then, of course, you're trying to keep your balance as you're walking down the curb and going across the street. And so your cognitive part of your brain is having to judge all that stuff, and so that you don't get hit and fall down while you're crossing the street. So the cognitive impairment can play a big role in walking. Exercise has also been shown to improve cognition, as we talked about earlier, and it's recommended about 2.5 hours a week, which is 30 minutes a day, 5 minutes, you can do 10 minutes, 3 times a day to get your 30 minutes in. And usually you want some kind of high intensity aerobic training. And it could be high intensity interval training, which is you do a little bit really fast and work really hard, and then you kind of calm back down to a easier level. But it's really important to get your heart rate up and to get your body moving. So review also with your doctor. Make sure that you're not taking medications that could be decreasing your cognitive abilities. So some sleeping medications, allergy medications, and opiates can do that. Develop habits and routines. We talked about the pill reminders and phone alarms and all that stuff. It makes it easier to remember your medications, but also the time that you're going to be setting aside to exercise, which is huge. Also, I'm hoping that you'll take some of these tips for managing freezing that I promise, be talking about today, and take them home and practice them. Put them on your calendar. Plan time every day to practice some of these things. Schedule into your day what's important to you and make it happen. With cognitive impairment, when you're trying to learn something new, whether it's a new motor skill, Turn off outside distractions like the radio and television. Try to avoid multitasking. Focus on doing one thing at a time so that you can do well at what it is you're really trying to do. Staying social, really important. Stay connected with your family and friends. Social interaction's been shown to actually protect memory. And as John was saying earlier, get out of the house. You don't want to just be home. You need to get out and have new experiences, not just keep doing the same thing. So stimulating your brain with physical activity is good, exercise. Social activity is important, novel experiences, things that are new. Keep doing things that are new. And stick with the things that are fun. Things that engage you are going to keep you going, and they're going to help your body keep moving. And complex movements, you want to learn, if you're having issues with freezing, you're going to want to take these and break them down into smaller parts. So it could be something like getting up from a chair. Maybe it's scooting in that chair. Maybe it's the leaning forward. Maybe it's the possibly reaching forward to help you stand up. But take something that's hard for you to do, break it into small pieces, and work on those little parts. So where does freezing happen, and when is it going to happen? When is it more likely that you're going to have problems with freezing? So if you know when and where it's more likely to happen, then you can better manage those situations by planning ahead. But you can't plan ahead for everything, so also hopefully I'm going to give you some ideas of things that you can do right now if you're having a moment where you're just not able to get going. So one situation that can affect people that are tending to have freezing of gait is stress and anxiety. That just makes it worse. For example, let's say that you're rushing for a phone, or you're trying to answer the door, or you're walking to dinner with friends and family, and they're walking along, and they're walking fast, and you're trying to keep up. So hurrying to keep up can be stressful, and that can actually make freezing worse. Stepping onto an elevator before those doors close, and we talked about the street crossing where there's a lot going on, a lot paying attention to. Or even just being frustrated with yourself, with your body for not responding the way it used to or the way that you want it to. All those things can increase your stress and anxiety, so what are you going to do? So the first thing is to just try to find a way to relax. So don't fight the freeze. Allow yourself to slow down and maybe even stop. So rather than fighting through and forcing yourself to keep moving, you might just want to take a little break. Just give yourself a break, be calm, breathe, take a deep breath in, take a breath out, and think for a second, what am I going to do here to get myself going? I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to come up with a nice little plan, and I'm going to relax before I do that. Actually, practicing is the key to all of these things I'm going to talk about today, and that includes relaxation exercises. It doesn't come naturally for me or a lot of people. And so practicing breathing exercises can make it actually happen a lot easier when you need it. It can help you to use that as a way to relax when you need it. There's also a lot of ways to meditate where you don't have to sit in a lotus position, which might be kind of hard for a lot of people. You can learn about meditation at a lot of different places. Fresno State's OLLI program, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, maybe some people here go to that. I understand they have classes in meditation. There's online adult education classes, other online courses, even some local churches. So you don't need headphones to practice breathing exercises or visual imagery or other relaxation techniques like progressive muscle relaxation. But with a phone or a computer, you could download an app, you could listen to a podcast. All you have to do is get somewhere comfortable and quiet and listen and follow along. Massage, of course, what a great way to lower your stress. Exercise, as we talked about earlier, also really can help reduce your overall stress and anxiety. So in Japan, they call it forest bathing. Here, we call it going to the mountains, or going to Pismo. But, maybe it's just going into your backyard, just spending some time in nature, getting outside, getting out of your four square walls is a really good way to also help add to your attempts to relax and reduce your anxiety. So, freezing also occurs in places. For example, small spaces, doorways, and surface changes. So, if you have a little crowded area, maybe you're walking alongside your bed, or you're going into a closet, the bathroom, the laundry area, or working on the irrigation on the side of the house, and then you're coming back, those areas are places where you're more likely to have trouble with freezing of gait. Any area that's kind of cluttered is going to be the same thing. Going through a doorway, whether there's a door in the doorway or not, that can be a problem. Stepping from sidewalk onto grass, tile the carpet, onto an elevator, just seeing that floor change from one type of surface to another can trigger freezing. Certain movements will also tend to trigger freezing. So, for example, turning and changing direction. Turning is a very complex movement. It requires actually a fair amount of balance. You've got to shift your body weight from one leg to the other. You've got to rotate. You've got to move your head, your upper body, your trunk, your lower body. It involves a lot, and that's a place where freezing can occur. Changing direction. So whether you're dancing like in this picture, or if you're just walking up to a wastebasket to throw something away, and then stepping back to go do whatever it was you're doing, that can trigger freezing, that switching of directions. Opening and closing the refrigerator, moving forward, moving back, walking to the side along a counter in the kitchen, for example. Certain activities like starting something new, getting up from a chair, and then, okay, now I'm going to start walking, that can be a time when freezing is triggered. Also, multitasking. We talked about the issues with cognitive impairment and how that can affect walking. Well, if you're walking and thinking about something, trying to remember something, or even carrying something can be distracting enough to interfere with your walking and can contribute to freezing of gait. The busy street, crowds, going to places where there's a lot of moving objects. So, for example, at lunchtime today, when everybody's getting up and moving around, you might see if you are typically affected by freezing of gait, if that tends to make it just a little bit worse. Getting up from a chair, I kind of talked about, it's a complex movement and it can trigger freezing. So what do we do about all these situations that are going to trigger freezing of gait? There's a wide range of techniques that use a specific strategy or cue to trigger movement and help decrease problems with freezing of gait. So first I'm going to talk about visual cues. So visual cues, that means using things that you can see to help trigger movement. And so this is going to help you with turns, changing directions, small spaces, doorways, walking after getting up from sitting. One thing you can do is put lines of tape on the floor. So if you're having trouble going through a doorway or a narrow passage, you can put some horizontal lines of high contrast colored tape that you can easily see on the floor to visually stimulate yourself to step over them. So for some very strange reason, it works for many people. Going around corners, making turns can be a problem, and you can set up kind of a quarter star shape of tape on the floor to help you make your way around a turn. In front of a chair, putting tape there can help you with stepping forward and then stepping to turn. You can also take tape, put it on the floor in the shape of a plus sign, and then that's where you can go and practice stepping over that tape. You can practice stepping to the side. You can practice switching directions. You can practice stepping forward and back. And by practicing those, that can help you get better at all those different movements. Make sure you do it in a safe place or with somebody that can help you. At least tape isn't something you're likely to trip over, and so it's safer that way. But make sure that you're able to do it in a safe way. There it is. So 4 square stepping, here's the guy doing it. Also an agility ladder. I brought one of those with me today, and I'm going to, during lunchtime, I guess, I'm going to set up in that back room back there. So if anybody wants to come and try these things, I'm going to be back there, and I'll be happy to show you how they work. But basically, it's just an inexpensive tool. You lay it on the ground, and you can practice walking in it. You can step over each rung. It can help you to get your stride length a little bit more even. You can practice walking sideways. You can practice stepping in and stepping out. And learning all these different ways of stepping and practicing all these different ways of stepping can make it easier when the time comes for you in everyday real life to be stepping in the various directions that we step in when we're moving. Also, there's using laser light. Laser canes, U-step walkers, and laser shoes. I'm not sure anybody really sells the laser shoes. I've seen all kinds of information about them, but I can't figure out how much they cost or where to buy them. But I've heard them called Q shoes and other things like that. But they just create a little temporary line for you to step over whenever you're walking. Steps are kind of a natural line that can encourage some people to actually feel like stepping. And so if steps work for you and you can exercise on steps, great. You can even use a handrail. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's say you don't have tape or your agility ladder, all these other things, and you're like, what do I have to look at? Well, you could imagine a line in front of you. If you've practiced enough times, you might even picture whatever color line you've been, tape you've been using at home. But the other thing you could do is you can have your care partner put their foot up right out there and encourage you to step over that, and that does work for some people. So reducing clutter, I kind of talked about that a little bit before. Visual cues are going to work a lot better in an open, clean space. So simplifying your life, getting rid of visual clutter will really help decrease freezing for people with Parkinson's. So now I'm going to talk about how auditory cues, or things that you listen to, can help you to start walking or keep on walking. They can help you with initiating movement, continuing movement. So, let's see. Counting can help. Whether you're trying to get going, you might need to say to yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, and go. Or if you're already walking and you're trying to make your way through a doorway, you might continue to count 1, 2, 1, 2 as you go through that door. Telling yourself to take big steps or to walk heel-toe, land on your heel first, then roll through to the toe. Big steps. That might be something that helps remind you to continue taking those big steps. Singing can sometimes be easier than speaking. It's handled differently in the brain. Singing also strengthens muscles involved in swallowing and breathing. Actually, singing lyrics can help improve memory issues. So, pick a tune. Pick something you like, whether it's you're in the military and you've got a military marching tune that gets you going, or something else with a beat. We've heard some good music with beats in here today that I would probably pick for mine if I were doing this. And you can do it everywhere. You can, at home, in your hallway, walking down the hall, great time to sing. Hum when you're out on a walk. And you can sing silently to yourself. Even hearing it in your brain can make a difference. Rhythmic music, you can take your transistor radio with you, or your iPod or smartphone. You're going to keep that with you all the time. That, unlike the transistor radio, you have to keep it charged on a regular basis. And then you got to remember to carry it with you, which is probably not a bad idea if you have a smartphone anyway, to keep that with you just in case of a fall or something like that. And then you can use headphones or earbuds or not. Put your favorite music on there. And actually I want to say, the other thing is, I like the idea of, let's say you're walking from your car to a restaurant or to your gym. And that's a good time to practice taking those big steps. Turn on the music, get the beat going, and take those big steps. Practice your big steps with the music. And make time every day for music, because music is really, just great for the soul. It kind of makes you happy. And so, at least, I don't know. Music has been found to be very effective with getting movement going in Parkinson's disease. So, then there's metronomes. You can even download an app on your phone that acts like a metronome and it clicks. It's kind of like a counting, and it can make that noise. It just helps you keep moving. So also your care partner might help you with some technological issues. If the iPod or smartphone and all that stuff sounds a little bit complicated, they can help you choose some music, maybe download some music, and then they can help you count for you, or help you sing, or play some music, or whistle, or tap you. A lot of different ways you can get auditory cues from your care partner. Now, my favorite part is using movement to trigger stepping. First thing is, again, relax. Then, and we're going to go through some of these here in just a couple of minutes. You can practice rocking side to side. If you're having trouble getting going, you're trying to move forward, but your legs just aren't moving, you can just try moving your body a little bit side to side. You can take it a step further and make it a bigger movement, lifting a heel, weight shifting. You can actually change directions to help you get going forward. You might need to take a step to the side or a step back to get yourself going forward. Just in not thinking about going forward and just starting to move in place, just picking up one foot after the other, just marching in place, changing your mental goal can actually help get you going forward. And again, you can think of that marching tune. Imagine, let's see if this works. You can imagine kicking an imaginary ball as you're walking. Again, you're not thinking about where you're going, you're thinking about moving those feet forward to kick a ball. Dance is also a great way. You can either listen to music, you can think about music, and you don't actually have to have music, but you can think about music and you can think about moving, and that's going to help your body get moving. Your care partner can use hands on both sides on your shoulders or on your hips and just gently help you rock to get going. That way you're not going to feel like you're being pushed forward, but just kind of help you get your weight off of one leg and onto that other leg. You can swing your arms. See if this works. So sometimes if you're going out for a walk and you're trying to keep yourself going, just having a little something in front of you like that you're focusing on and paying attention to can keep you moving forward. Turning your head before you get going. Turning your head and looking one way before you start going forward. A lot of times with Parkinson's, we're not moving our head as much, and so remembering to turn your head and to look before you get going can help you. So with all of these things, these movement activities, you want to practice them, and you can actually turn those practices into exercise. So practice often, practice at home, practice in the morning, practice in the yard. Practice when you're out and about. Practice at the gym, walking to the gym. I keep saying gym. Doctor's office or church, all those different places. And practice during your on times when your medications are working. That's when your motor learning is going to be the most effective. And whatever it is that you want to learn, you want to practice what matters to you. Everybody's got a different goal, and you want to practice what matters to you. So we talked about relaxing, knowing where your triggers are, using visual cues, auditory cues, and movement cues to get you moving. So I had this bright idea that we'd all stand up and try some of these. This is looking kind of crowded in here. So we're going to do a few little movement things now. Sitting. So if you want to turn your chair to face this way, if you're turned the wrong way, we're going to just sit and kind of relax again to start with. Okay, so let's just start with focusing on your breathing. So breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Breathe in for a few seconds. and breathe out for a few seconds longer. When you're breathing in, you're going to feel your belly rise, and when you breathe out, your belly is going to go back down. You want to breathe out a little bit longer than you're breathing in. So hopefully just a little bit of breathing in. You've done that earlier today, and we're doing it again. It's going to help you just kind of relax and move on to the next thing. So now you can actually kind of do this in your chair. We're going to rock side to side. So you may feel more comfortable. Let's see here. Let's see if I get this part right. Oh yeah. Turn it on. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? So, okay. I'm going to stand. You guys sit. How about that? So you're going to push into the floor with your right foot and rock to the left. And push with the other foot and rock the other way. This is what you're going to do when you're standing. This is a way that can help you get moving and get started walking. If you're standing, you've got the hips, you can move a little bit more. When you're sitting, it's more just your shoulders. But go ahead and keep your shoulders back and down, your posture tall, and rock side to side. Now, even in your chair, you can lift up one heel and then the other. Rock to the right, lift your left heel. Rock to the left, lift your other heel. And just kind of loosens up your ankles a little bit, gets you moving. Now we're going to add a turn of the head. Now I don't want people getting dizzy, so don't turn your head and look way over there. But when you rock to one side, just kind of turn your head and see what's nearby to one side, what's nearby to the other side. Focus on something to your right. Focus on something to your left. Stay tall, keep the head movement small. But practice moving your head. Practice keeping your vision focused on different things. Now we're going to add a reach. So this is where you guys have to be careful. So what we're going to do, we're going to stay tall. We're going to rock side to side. And we're going to reach one hand one direction and reach the other hand the other direction. Sometimes I do it with an elbow. If there's not a... Careful there. So reach those hands out, look at your hands, turn your head and look at your hand or your elbows, spread your fingers, flick them out, put some energy into it, get your hands warmed up, and this is going to help make your fingers a little more loose for later in the day. Okay, great. Now, since I'm talking an awful lot up here, we're going to add a little counting in here. And so you guys, we're going to rock, we're going to reach, we're going to count, and on the start of, I guess we'll go from 10 to 0. How's that sound? So let's count now, and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! Good job, you guys. So, that's one way to get movement started. Sometimes swinging your arms can get you moving. You could even just start with one arm. You might have an arm that doesn't swing, and maybe that's the one you want to get moving a little bit more. You might take both arms, and while one arm's going forward, see if you can get that other arm to go back. And if you've got room in your chair, go ahead and try that. And see how that makes your body feel. Doesn't that kind of make you want to turn your body just a little bit as those arms are swinging? You can even swing your arms just a little bit side to side in front of you. Like I call it kind of like an ape. But swinging your arms helps to get your body rotating and turning, and that might make it easier for you to take a turn. Now, I guess we can do this in the chairs, but so as we're swinging, we're feeling a little bit of a twist. Now we can add a little bit of a foot tap, and we can do that. You can tap in place. You can do that sitting. You can do it standing. You can tap forward. You can tap to the side. But all those different movements are going to help your body loosen up and move and get you going. And you don't have to go out in public and start doing this, but you can at least kind of start with a little bit of a movement. So let's say you've gotten to where you're marching. Well, let's say we're going to change all this and turn it into marching. I guess we can march in our chairs. Now we're going to add let's see if I can figure this out, what I did wrong here. Let's just go to, okay, so now we're going to add a cognitive task. So we're marching in place, we're marching in our chairs, and so one of the things that can, we talk about not multitasking because it's difficult, right? It's better to focus on one thing, especially if you're having issues with freezing. But if you practice dual tasking or multitasking, that can actually help you help you get a little bit better at it. So let's try, I'm not going to make this too, let's count backwards from 100 by threes. Okay, never mind. I do that one a lot at work, and everybody's like, okay, how about, let's just count from 20 to 10 by twos, and 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, there, we did it. Okay, we went from 20 to 10. So, okay, so I guess that's it. Anyway, so I am going to have an agility ladder. I have a few tennis balls. I'm going to set up some tape if you guys want to practice stepping over lines, and I have a couple other fun things. Not more fun than these, but so anyway, I hope I'll get to talk to some of you after the fact. Thank you.
We have time for just a couple questions from Kaaren, if you don't mind, Kaaren. Sorry. Does anybody have a quick question?
I don't know anything.
She does want to answer your questions, I promise. She was just kidding when she walked off.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one question right here.
This is a real good program, but I would like it if it was cut in half and met twice a month.
Me too.
Well, you can socialize with.
Right? I agree.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you think that freezing could be an initial symptom?
I understand that it occurs in like less than, I forget if it's 5 or 10% of the cases in the early stages. But, freezing is not always identifiable as freezing. So I suppose that it could be, but it's not usually an early symptom. Could be, but it's not normally.
Another question? Sorry, I'm not fast enough.
I don't have a question, but I do have something that's really helped my husband, and he uses a walker, and he can freeze, and we've put strips of plastic on the rung in front, like 2 strips that hang down so he can see them, and I just tell him, kick the strip, and just that idea of kicking makes him start, and it's just a simple thing, it's attached, it's cheap. You put some fabric or some strips of plastic, and people look at us a little oddly because he's going around with his orange strips, but on his walker, but it really does help.
That's great. I love to learn from people like you. I've heard of people using zip ties. There's kind of a similar thing on the walker to kick.
Sorry, I lost somebody. I'll hurry.
Anybody else that has good ideas, I'd love to hear them.
I just wanted to share something that my husband and I use, and that's the fact that our hallway is carpeted, so while I can put tape in other areas of the house, down the hallway I use the inexpensive yardsticks that you can get at Home Depot, and they float on the surface, they don't trip, they have to be realigned, and I use yellow tape to kind of keep them in alignment on the sides down the baseboard so I know where to put them back. And we all, we all walk over them as we go down the hall. So I think it's helpful for everyone in the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Good idea.